The entire room stood up for my wife. Not for me. Not for the man who had spent 7 years building the foundation beneath her empire. For her. Claire Anderson stood under the golden lights of the largest business hall in New York, holding a crystal award in her hand while hundreds of executives applauded. Tonight is not just a victory for Anderson Global, she said confidently. It is proof that vision, courage, and determination can change the world. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters surrounded her. Everyone saw a legendary female CEO who had created a 20 billion technology empire from nothing. Everyone saw the woman who defeated competitors, conquered international markets, and became one of the most admired business leaders in America. Nobody saw me sitting at the far end of the room. Nobody cared about the man who had written the first line of code, negotiated the first investment, and saved the company from bankruptcy 3 different times to them. I was just Ethan Carter, Claire Anderson's husband. A name that disappeared behind hers. For years, I was okay with that. Because Claire was my wife. I believed that when two people loved each other, it didn't matter who stood in the spotlight. I was wrong. The person standing beside you during your success is not always the person who remembers who helped you get there. Sometimes, success changes people. Sometimes, it reveals them. And tonight, I finally saw the woman my wife had become. Claire raised her glass. The future of Anderson Global. Everyone cheered. Then she looked directly at me. For a second, I thought she was finally going to acknowledge me. Maybe she would say something simple, something like, "My husband Ethan was the first person who believed in me." But instead, she smiled. A cold, unfamiliar smile. Of course, she continued, "Every successful company needs people who understand their limits." The room became quiet. I immediately knew where this was going. Claire walked toward the center of the stage. Behind her, the giant screen displayed the next announcement. Starting tomorrow, Ethan Carter will be transferred to our Africa Development Division. The words appeared in huge letters. Africa Project Director. The entire room looked toward me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Claire continued, "This project is important, but it requires someone who can work independently without affecting the company's main strategy." A few executives exchanged looks. Everyone understood what she meant. She was saying, I was no longer important. She was saying I was being removed. In front of hundreds of people. Her victory celebration. My wife was sending me away. A man beside me whispered, "Isn't that her husband?" Another person replied, "Yeah, I heard he used to work with her." Used to. That word hurt more than anything else. Because it was true. I used to be the person she trusted. I used to be the person she called at midnight when she had problems. I used to be the person who stayed awake for 3 days fixing the company's first major system failure. But now, I was just someone she wanted out of the way. Claire looked at me. "Ethan, do you have anything to say?" The entire room waited. She expected anger. She expected me to argue. She expected me to embarrass myself. Because she already believed she had won. I slowly stood up. Everyone watched. I walked toward the stage. Claire looked satisfied. She probably thought I was going to beg, maybe apologize, maybe ask her to reconsider. Instead, I picked up the transfer agreement from the table. I signed it. Then I handed it back. The room became silent. Claire frowned. "You're not going to ask why?" I looked at her. No, her expression changed slightly. For the first time tonight, she looked surprised. "You don't want an explanation?" I shook my head. "No explanation will change a decision you already made." Claire stared at me. "You're acting like you don't care." I smiled. "No." Claire, I placed the pen down. "I'm acting like I finally understand." Her eyes narrowed. "Understand what?" I looked around the room. The executives, the investors, the people celebrating the empire I secretly built. Then I looked back at my wife. "Understand that this company means more to you than our marriage." A few people lowered their heads. Nobody spoke. Claire's face became colder. "That's dramatic." Maybe. I nodded. "But it's also true." She stepped closer. "Ethan, don't make this emotional. This is business." Business. That was always her favorite excuse. Whenever she ignored my opinions. Business. Whenever she canceled our plans. Business. Whenever she chose Ryan over me. Business. I looked toward the young man standing beside her. Ryan Mitchell, her assistant. The man who had been taking my place for months. He was wearing an expensive suit. The same kind of suit I helped Claire afford when the company was struggling. Ryan looked at me with a small smile. A victorious smile. I understood everything. This wasn't just a transfer. This was a replacement. Claire wanted him beside her. Not me. The husband who knew every weakness of the company. Not me. The man who had protected her dream. Not me. She wanted someone who made her feel powerful, someone who constantly told her she was perfect, someone like Ryan. Claire noticed where I was looking. Her expression remained calm. Ryan has been helping me handle many important matters recently. I laughed softly. I asked that what we call it now. Her eyes turned sharp. Watch your words. I looked at her. No, I shook my head. I'm done watching my words. For 7 years, I had considered her feelings before my own. Tonight, for the first time, I didn't. Claire crossed her arms. You think leaving will hurt me? No, I answered immediately. That's why I'm leaving. She froze. I continued. If you believe you don't need me, I won't force you to. The room remained silent. Claire looked almost annoyed. Because she wanted me to fight. She wanted proof that I still needed her. But I didn't. Not anymore. I turned around and walked away from the stage. Behind me, applause slowly returned. Claire continued the celebration. The world kept seeing her as a queen. Nobody knew that the man she had just thrown away was the person who owned the crown. 3 hours later, I sat alone in my apartment. The same apartment Claire and I bought 5 years ago. The place where she once told me, Ethan, when this company succeeds, I'll make sure everyone knows you were the reason. I almost laughed when I remembered that. Promises made before success were always beautiful. Promises after success were much harder to keep. My phone vibrated. A message appeared. Claire, your flight is tomorrow morning. Don't cause trouble in Africa. I don't have time to deal with unnecessary problems. I stared at the message. Not one apology. Not one question. Not even. Are you okay? I typed a reply, then deleted it. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Instead, I opened another application. The one nobody in Anderson Global knew existed, the ownership system. The real one. Not the public documents. Not the records Claire showed investors. The original structure. A structure created 7 years ago. My fingers moved across the screen. I entered my password. Founder authentication accepted. A message appeared. Welcome back, Mr. Carter. I looked at the screen. All the hidden accounts. All the controlling shares. All the contracts. Everything. Everything Claire believed belonged to her. Actually belonged to me. I had hidden my identity because I wanted Claire to succeed. Because I loved her. Because I believed one day she would remember the person standing behind her. But she didn't. She replaced me. She humiliated me. She sent me away. So I made one decision. I would give her exactly what she wanted. A world without Ethan Carter. I closed the laptop. 3 days. That was all I needed. 3 days later, Claire Anderson would learn the truth. The empire she proudly called hers was never hers. It was mine. The next morning, I left New York without saying goodbye. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood something important. Sometimes, the hardest goodbye is not leaving someone you hate. It is leaving someone you once believed would never hurt you. At 6:30 a.m., I arrived at the airport with one suitcase. That was all I took. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of memories, 7 years of building a company that everyone thought belonged to my wife, and I carried only one suitcase. The irony almost made me laugh that a stranger looking at me would think I was the one who failed, the husband who was sent away, the man who lost everything. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know that the company sending me away was built on my decisions. They didn't know that the woman celebrating her victory was standing on the foundation I created. They didn't know that the assistant standing beside her was about to lose everything he thought he had gained. I walked through the airport quietly. No reporters, no executives, no farewell. Exactly what Claire wanted. A clean disappearance. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Claire. For a moment, I wondered why she was calling. Maybe she finally regretted it. Maybe after spending the night alone, she realized what she had done. Maybe she wanted to say sorry. I answered. Hello? Her voice was cold. Did you get to the airport? Yes. Good. A pause. Then she continued. I hope you understand this isn't personal. I looked at the planes outside the window. Not personal. That was the sentence people used when they wanted to hurt someone without feeling guilty. Okay. My simple answer seemed to surprise her. You're not angry. No, Ethan. This attitude isn't helping. I almost smiled. Helping what? Her guilt. Her image. Her new relationship. What do you want me to say, Claire? Silence. Then she said, I just want you to accept reality. Reality. Interesting word. The woman who built her entire empire on my hidden support was telling me to accept reality. What reality? She sighed. Not everyone can stay at the top forever. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth. She didn't see me as her partner anymore. She saw me as someone who had reached his limit. Someone who had become unnecessary. Don't worry, I said. I accepted it. Good. Her voice became softer. Maybe after some time in Africa, you'll understand your position better. My position. I looked down at my watch. The same watch Claire gave me on our first anniversary. She said, even if the whole world forgets you, I never will. Now she had forgotten me before the whole world did. I have to board. I ended the call. Before she could respond, 3 hours later, Claire stood in the headquarters of Anderson Global. The entire executive floor was celebrating. The news of my transfer had already spread. People were discussing it quietly. I didn't expect Ethan to leave. He probably knew he couldn't compete with Ryan. Honestly, Ryan fits the CEO better, Claire heard those comments, and she liked them. That was the worst part. She liked hearing that she had made the right choice. Ryan walked into her office carrying coffee. Your favorite? Claire smiled. You remembered. Ryan placed the coffee down. Of course, small things. That was what he was good at. Remembering coffee preferences, sending flowers, saying perfect words, making Claire feel admired. Things that looked impressive. Things that were easy. Unlike the things I did. I never bought her flowers during investor meetings. I never posted romantic messages online. I never told everyone how amazing she was. Because I was busy making sure her company survived. I fixed problems nobody knew existed. I prevented disasters nobody knew were coming. But people rarely appreciate the person who stops a disaster. They only remember the person who appears after the disaster and takes credit for solving it. Ryan sat across from Claire. Oh, he smiled. It's finally just us. Claire looked at him. A slight smile appeared. Yes, Ryan. Leaned closer. And oh, more Ethan. Claire didn't answer immediately, but she didn't reject the statement. That was enough? Ryan reached for her hand. Claire, you made the right choice. She looked at their hands. I know. You deserve someone who can stand beside you. Again, another sentence, another knife, because Ryan knew exactly what to say. He knew Claire's biggest insecurity. She wanted someone who made her feel like the most powerful woman in the world. I used to tell her she was powerful. Ryan told her she was superior. There was a difference, and Claire loved the second one. At noon, Claire held another executive meeting. The purpose was simple. Introduce Ryan as the new person responsible for strategic development. A position that used to belong to me. The conference room was full. Claire stood at the front. From today, Ryan Mitchell will handle international expansion. Everyone applauded. Ryan smiled confidently. Then one executive raised a question. Shouldn't Ethan approve this? The room became quiet. Claire's expression changed. No, the executive hesitated. But Ethan was responsible for most of the company's international systems. Claire smiled. He was. The way she said it made everyone understand. Past tense. He had his chance. Ryan immediately added. The company needs new ideas. A few people nodded. Claire looked satisfied. She liked this. A new era. A new partner. A new image. She didn't notice that several senior executives were exchanging worried looks. Because they knew something Claire didn't. Ethan wasn't just an employee. He was the person who understood every hidden mechanism of Anderson Global. Every risk, every contract, every weakness, every emergency plan. Without him, the company wasn't immediately destroyed, but it was no longer protected, and nobody realized the protection had disappeared. Meanwhile, my plane landed in Africa. The moment I stepped outside, my phone received dozens of notifications. Most were from old business contacts, messages I ignored, until one message appeared. David Morgan. Ethan, are you sure about this? David was one of the few people who knew the truth that he was the chairman of one of the largest investment groups in the world, and one of my oldest partners. I replied. Yes. A few seconds later. Claire doesn't know? No. Another pause. Then, she sent you away from your own company? I looked at the message, then typed. She believes it is her company. David replied. And you? I looked at the African skyline outside the window. For years, I had hidden behind Claire. Now I finally understood. I wasn't protecting her dream anymore. I was protecting someone who had already chosen to abandon me. I typed one sentence. The next 3 days will answer that question. That evening, Claire attended a private dinner with Ryan. The media reported it as a celebration of Anderson Global's success. Pictures appeared everywhere. The famous CEO, the talented assistant, the perfect partnership. Nobody mentioned Ethan Carter. Nobody cared where he was. Claire looked at the news article and smiled. She thought her life had finally reached its peak. She thought she had removed the only person stopping her. She thought sending me to Africa was the end of the story. But she didn't know something. 3 days later, the largest investor meeting in Anderson Global's history would begin. And the first question they would ask was, "Where's the real owner?" The first night in Africa was quieter than I expected. No phone calls from Claire. No messages asking if I arrived safely. No questions about whether I was tired. Nothing. And strangely enough, that silence answered every question I still had. For 7 years, I had convinced myself that Claire was simply busy. She wasn't cold. She wasn't selfish. She wasn't changing. She was just under pressure. That was what I told myself every time she forgot our anniversary because of a business meeting. Every time she canceled dinner because Ryan needed her help. Every time she introduced me as someone who works with me instead of my husband, that I always found an excuse for her. Because admitting the truth was harder. The truth was simple. Claire no longer saw me as someone standing beside her. She saw me as someone standing behind her. And once she became powerful, she stopped looking back. That I sat in the temporary apartment arranged by the company and opened my laptop. The screen showed hundreds of notifications. Most people would have been overwhelmed. That I wasn't. Because I wasn't looking at problems, that I was looking at consequences. For years, I built Anderson Global's internal structure. That I created a system that connected every major department. That a system Claire thought was just another piece of company software. She never knew there was a hidden layer. That a layer only I controlled. The original founder access. That I clicked one file. That Anderson Global Foundation. Inside were thousands of pages, investment records, ownership agreements, technology patents, strategic plans, everything. Everything that made Anderson Global powerful. And at the top of every document was one name: founder, Ethan Carter. I stared at those words, not because I was proud, because I remembered why I hid them. 7 years ago, when Claire started her company, she had nothing to no investors, no reputation, no connections. Only an idea. But she had something I loved. A dream. She sat across from me in our tiny apartment and said, "Ethan, I know people will laugh at me." I asked, "Do you believe in your idea?" She nodded. "Yes." "Then why care about what they think?" She smiled. "Because I want to prove them wrong." That night, I made a decision. I would help her. Not as an investor. Not as a founder. As her husband. I used my resources. My connections. My technology. My knowledge. And slowly, Anderson Global grew to at first. Claire knew everything. She knew I helped. She knew I solved problems. She knew I was the reason many doors opened. But success changed the story. People started calling her a genius. A visionary. A once-in-a-generation entrepreneur. And slowly, she started believing the story too. She forgot the nights we spent planning. She forgot the risks we took. She forgot who was sitting beside her when nobody believed in her. Then Ryan appeared, and suddenly, I became the only person in the room who didn't tell her what she wanted to hear. That was my mistake. I loved her enough to tell her the truth. Ryan loved her enough to tell her whatever kept him close. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. "David Morgan." I answered. "Ethan, have you seen the latest reports?" "Yes." Claire approved Ryan's expansion plan. I know. David was silent. Then he said, "That plan is dangerous." I know. "Ethan, if Ryan continues, Anderson Global could lose billions." I leaned back. "Not yet." "Not yet?" I looked at the ownership dashboard. The company was still running, still stable. But without my protection, small problems would begin appearing. A delayed supplier, a missed contract condition, a forgotten security approval. Nothing dramatic. Not at first. A company like Anderson Global didn't collapse overnight. IT collapsed slowly, like a building with a damaged foundation. People only noticed when it was already too late. "Give them 3 days," I said. David sighed. "You really want to watch?" I looked at the screen. At Claire's named. The woman who once promised she would never forget me. "Yes." "Why?" I didn't answer immediately. Because the answer was complicated. Part of me wanted her to understand. Not suffer. Understand. There was a difference. I want her to know the truth. David was quiet. Then he said, "And after that, I close the laptop. After that, I decide whether the woman I loved still exists." The next morning, Claire arrived at Anderson Global headquarters. Everything looked normal. Employees greeted her. Executives smiled. The media praised her. Her world still looked perfect. She walked into her office. Ryan was already there. He stood beside the window. You're early. Claire smiled. I wanted to check the expansion documents. Ryan handed her a folder. Everything is ready. She opened it. The numbers looked impressive. New markets, new partnerships, huge profits. Claire nodded. This is exactly what we need. Ryan smiled. I told you. The company needs fresh leadership. Claire looked at him. For a moment, she remembered Ethan, not because she missed him, but because Ethan would never present something without checking every detail that he would always ask. What could go wrong? Ryan only asked, how fast can we win? And right now, Claire liked that. She liked feeling unstoppable. She closed the folder, submitted. Ryan smiled. Are you sure? Claire looked at him. Yes. Even without Ethan reviewing it, her expression immediately became colder. I'm just saying Ethan is not part of the future. Ryan smiled. Exactly. Claire turned toward the window. The city below looked like it belonged to her. The entire world knew her name. She had everything: power, money, influence at a company worth billions, and a man who admired her at least. That's what she believed. At 2 p.m. The first problem appeared that a supplier rejected a major contract adjustment. Claire didn't care. Fix it. Ryan nodded. I will. At 4 p.m. Another problem appeared. An international partner requested a review of previous agreements. Claire frowned. Why? Nobody had an answered. At 6 p.m. Three senior executives requested an emergency meeting. Claire finally became irritated. What is happening? One executive looked uncomfortable. Some systems are requiring founder-level approval. Claire froze. Founder approval? Yes, use my authorization. The executive hesitated. We tried. And it was rejected. The room became silent. Claire looked at Ryan. What does that mean? Ryan immediately answered. It must be a technical problem. Claire nodded. Yes. It had to be. Because another possibility was impossible. There was no hidden founder. There was no person above her. She was the CEO. She was the owner. She was the person everyone answered to. At least. That was what she believed. That night, Claire called me again. I answered after the third ring. Hello? Her voice was different this time. Not cold, confused. Ethan. Yes? Did you change anything before leaving? I smiled. The first question. Not? How are you? Not. Did you arrive safely? The company came first. It always did. What do you mean? Some internal systems are acting strangely. I see. Did you do something? I looked at the ownership dashboard. A small notification appeared. Founder access active. I closed the window. No, Claire was silent. Then, are you sure? Yes. Another pause. Ethan, I need you to be honest. I almost laughed. Honest. The person who hid a relationship from me was asking me to be honest. I always was. She didn't respond. Finally, she said, when you return, we need to talk. I looked outside. The city lights reflected on the glass. Return. That was interesting. Yesterday, she sent me away. Today, she wanted me back. But not because she missed me, because something needed fixing. I calmly answered. Claire, yes? You told me this was business. Silence. So now handle it as business. I ended the call. 3 seconds later, another notification appeared. Countdown initiated. 72 hours until ownership disclosure. I looked at the screen. 3 days. 3 days until the woman who threw me away discovered the truth. The empire she thought she owned was waiting for its real owner to return. People always say success reveals a person's true character. I used to disagree. I believed success changed people. I believed a good person could become arrogant because of pressure, expectations, and attention. I believe Claire was still the same woman I met 7 years ago. I was wrong. Success did not change Claire. It only removed the limits that once controlled her. Before Anderson Global became a 20 billion empire, Claire Anderson was not a powerful CEO. She was just a woman with a dream. And I was the only person who believed that dream could become reality. 7 years ago, nobody knew her name. Nobody wanted to invest in her. Nobody believed a small technology startup could compete against established companies. Except me. I still remembered the night she came home carrying a rejected investment proposal. She threw the documents onto the table. They rejected me again. I looked up from my laptop. How many times? 7. I smiled. Then you only need one more. She looked at me. You're joking? No, Ethan. 7 companies said no. 7 companies that weren't smart enough. She shook her head. You always make everything sound easy. I closed my laptop. No. I make you remember that difficult doesn't mean impossible. She sat down beside me. For a few seconds, she didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "What if I fail?" I looked at her. "Then we fail." She looked surprised. We? Yes. Why? I smiled. Because your dream became my dream when you told me about it. That was Claire, the woman I fell in love with. Not the CEO standing on a stage yesterday. Not the woman who sent me away. The Claire from 7 years ago was different. She was ambitious. She was stubborn. She was passionate. But she was also humble. She knew she needed help. She knew she couldn't do everything alone. That was why I stayed. The first year was the hardest. Claire worked 18 hours a day. She attended meetings. She studied competitors. She searched for investors. But she didn't know the technical side. That was where I came in. I created the original algorithm that became Anderson Global's foundation, that I designed the security structure, that I built the first prototype, that I negotiated with the first major investor. But I never took credit. Whenever someone asked who developed the technology, Claire would say, "My team." And I accepted that because I didn't care about recognition. I cared about her. The first major investor meeting was something I would never forget. Claire walked into the conference room wearing an inexpensive suit. She looked confident, but I knew she was nervous. Before she entered, she looked at me. "What if they reject us?" I said. "Then we find someone else. And if everyone rejects us?" I smiled. "Then we build something so good they have no choice but to notice." She laughed. "You always have an answer." "No." I looked at her. "I just know you." That meeting changed everything. The investors approved. The company received its first major funding. Anderson Global officially began. Everyone celebrated Claire. The media called her a genius. The employees called her a leader. And I stood behind her. I was happy. Because the woman I loved was finally achieving her dream, at least. That was what I thought. The first time I noticed Claire changing was 3 years into the company. The company had grown from 20 employees to over 2,000. Claire became busier. That was normal. I understood. But something else changed. She stopped asking for my opinion. Before, every important decision started with, "Ethan, what do you think?" Later, it became, "I already decided IT first." I ignored it. I thought she was becoming more confident. Then came the investors' dinner. That night, one of the investors asked, "Claire, who helped you build this company?" I expected her to mention me. Instead, she smiled. My determination. The table laughed. The investor nodded. "That's impressive." I sat beside her. Silent. I waited. Maybe she would add something later. Maybe after dinner. Maybe privately. But she never did. On the way home, I asked, "Did you forget something?" She looked at me. "What?" The question. "What question?" The investor asked, "Who helped you build the company?" She frowned. "Ethan, do we really need to discuss this?" I looked at her. "Discuss what?" "This." She waved her hand. "Your need for recognition." I froze. My need for recognition? Yes, she sighed. "You know how difficult it is being the face of this company." I stared at her. "I know. No, you don't." Her voice became frustrated. "Everyone watches me. Everyone judges me. I have to prove myself every day." I nodded. "And I understand that. Then why are you making this about you?" That sentence stayed with me. Because I suddenly realized something. Claire didn't think I was supporting her anymore. She thought I was competing with her. I looked out the window. No reason. She relaxed. Good. That night, I didn't argue. Because I thought it was temporary. I thought once the pressure decreased, things would return to normal. But they didn't. They only got worse. A year later, Ryan Mitchell joined Anderson Global. At first, I liked him. He was young, ambitious, energetic. Claire needed someone to help manage her schedule. I didn't see him as a threat. That was my mistake. Ryan understood something I didn't. Claire no longer wanted someone who challenged her. She wanted someone who admired her. And Ryan gave her exactly that. Every morning. "Claire, your presentation yesterday was incredible." Every meeting. "Claire, nobody understands this industry better than you." Every decision. I knew. Your judgment was correct. He never questioned her, never disagreed, never reminded her of mistakes. To Claire, he became the perfect person because he reflected the image she wanted to see. Slowly, Ryan became closer to her. Too close. At first, I ignored the signs, late-night messages, private meetings, sudden changes in her schedule. I trusted my wife. Until one night. I came to the office because I forgot some documents. The building was almost empty, except for one room. Claire's office. The lights were still on. I opened the door and saw Ryan standing beside her, too close. The moment they saw me, they separated. Claire looked surprised. Ethan? I looked at Ryan, then at her. Nobody spoke. Finally, Claire said, "Why are you here?" Not. It's not what it looks like. Not. Let me explain. Just, why are you here? That question told me everything. I put the documents on the table. I forgot these. Ryan smiled awkwardly. I was just helping Claire finish some work. I looked at him. Of course. Claire frowned. Don't start. I looked at her. Start what? This attitude. I almost laughed. My attitude. Not their behavior. My attitude. That night, I left without saying anything. But something inside me changed. For the first time, I stopped trying to save something that only I cared about. The next morning, Claire acted like nothing happened. That hurt more than the betrayal itself. She sat across from me during breakfast. We need to talk about the Africa project. I looked at her. You already decided. She ignored my comment. The company needs someone there, and you chose me. Yes. Why? She looked annoyed. Because you understand the market. I nodded. Interesting. She still needed my ability, just not me. You know what's funny? She looked up. What? For years, I thought you wanted me beside you. Silence. Then she said, Ethan, don't make this emotional. Again, that phrase. I stood up. You know what? What? Maybe Africa is a good idea. She looked surprised. You agree? I nodded. Yes. Because at that moment, I understood something. Leaving wasn't losing. Leaving was finally seeing the truth. Claire thought she was sending me away. She didn't know. She was removing the only person protecting everything she built. The day Claire announced Ryan's promotion, everyone in Anderson Global knew something had changed. Not because of the announcement itself. Companies change positions all the time. Executives came and went. People were promoted. People were replaced. That was normal. What wasn't normal was the way Claire looked at Ryan, the way she introduced him, the way she spoke about him, like he was not just an employee, like he was the person who finally understood her, the person who belonged beside her. I was sitting in the last row of the conference room when Claire walked onto the stage. The same conference room where we once celebrated our first major investment. The same place where Claire held my hand under the table and whispered, "We did it." Back then, she said we. Now, she only said I. Today, Anderson Global enters a new stage, Claire announced. The executives listened carefully. Our company needs younger leadership, new strategies, and a more aggressive approach toward international expansion. Everyone nodded. I already knew what was coming, because I had seen this pattern before. When people wanted to remove someone, they rarely said, "You are no longer valuable." They said, "We need change." Claire continued. Therefore, Ryan Mitchell will become the new head of international development. The room applauded. Ryan stood up. His expression was confident. Almost too confident. He looked at me, just for a second, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who believed he had defeated me. I looked away. Because I already knew something Ryan didn't. He hadn't won. He had simply been given something he didn't understand. Power without understanding was dangerous. And eventually, it destroyed everyone who held it. After the meeting, Ryan came to my office. Actually, it wasn't my office anymore. Claire had already reassigned IT. My name had been removed from the door. A new name was there. Ryan Mitchell, Director of International Strategy. I stood outside for a moment. Not because I cared about the office, because I remembered what happened there. Countless nights, thousands of documents, hundreds of decisions. That room was where Anderson Global was built. But now, someone else sat there. Ryan looked up when I entered. Ethan. I nodded. Congratulations. He smiled. Thank you. The way he said it made it clear that he enjoyed this. You know, Ryan said, leaning back in the chair, I never expected this position. I looked at him. No? He shook his head. Honestly, I always thought Claire would keep you around. I didn't answer. Ryan continued. But I guess even she realized eventually. Realized what? He smiled. That you were holding her back. I stared at him. There it was. The belief that Claire had built. The belief Ryan had strengthened. That I was the obstacle. Not the person who helped her. Not the person who protected her. The obstacle. I walked closer. Ryan. Yes? Do you know why this company survived its first 3 years? He smiled. Because Claire was talented. I nodded. She was. And because she worked harder than anyone. She did. Ryan looked satisfied. So you agreed? No, his smile faded. I agree she was talented. I looked around the office. But talent alone doesn't build an empire. Ryan's expression changed. You think you did everything? No, I shook my head. I think nobody builds anything alone. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Then he laughed. Ethan, you really need to accept reality. I almost smiled. That sentence again. Everyone who underestimated me used the same words. Reality. They thought reality was what they could see. They saw Claire as the CEO. They saw Ryan as her chosen successor. They saw me as a man being sent away. But reality wasn't always visible. Sometimes, reality was hidden in documents nobody had read. Sometimes, reality was sitting quietly in the corner while everyone celebrated someone else. Then I turned toward the door. Before leaving, I said, "Enjoy the office." Ryan looked confused. That's it? Yes, you're not angry. I looked back. Know why? I smiled. Because some people spend their entire lives trying to sit in a chair. I opened the door. Others decide who owns the building. Then I left. That night, Claire came home late. Our apartment was quiet. She entered and saw me packing. For a moment, she stopped. You're actually leaving? I looked at her. Yes. She frowned. I thought you understood this was temporary. I laughed softly. Temporary? The Africa assignment. I zipped my suitcase. Claire, you transferred me in front of everyone. Her expression changed. You're still upset about that. I looked at her. That question hurt. Not because she asked it, because she genuinely didn't understand why it mattered. You publicly removed your husband from the company he helped create. She sighed. Here we go again. Again? Yes. She put down her bag. You always make everything about our relationship. I stared at her, because I finally understood. Claire had separated herself from the company, but she had also separated herself from me. To her, I was two different people. The useful Ethan who helped her build an empire, and the emotional Ethan who wanted respect. She wanted the first one, but she didn't want the second. I need you to understand something, Claire said. What? This is not betrayal. I looked at her. No? No, she walked closer. Sometimes people grow apart. I nodded slowly. So that's what this is. What? You growing beyond me. She didn't answer. And that silence was the answer. I looked at my wife, the woman I had spent 7 years protecting, the woman I had sacrificed. The woman I believed would stand beside me forever. Then I realized something. I wasn't losing my wife. I had already lost her. I was just accepting it now. The next morning, I left. Claire didn't come to the airport. I wasn't surprised. The woman who sent me away didn't need to watch me leave. Before boarding the plane, I received a message from David Morgan. David, are you really going through with it? I replied, yes. David, she still doesn't know? No, David. Anderson Global depends on you. I looked at the airplane window, then typed, no. A few seconds later, no? I replied, Claire depends on me. I paused. That's the difference. The flight lasted more than 12 hours. During that time, I thought about everything. Was I angry? Yes. Was I hurt? Yes. But revenge was not my goal. I didn't want Claire destroyed. I wanted her awake. There was a difference. I wanted her to understand what she had thrown away. Because sometimes the most painful lesson was not losing money, not losing power, not losing status. It was realizing that the person you underestimated was the only person who truly believed in you. When I arrived in Africa, David had already prepared everything. A private team waited for me. Not because I needed protection, because they knew my real identity. The founder, the owner, the person behind several global investments. One of them handed me a folder. Mr. Carter, everything is ready. I opened it. Inside were documents. The first page contained one sentence. Emergency founder authority activation. I closed the folder. Not yet. The assistant looked surprised. But sir, if Anderson Global continues with Ryan's plan, I know. Then why wait? I looked at the city outside. Because timing mattered. A person could survive losing money. A person could survive losing a company. But losing everything they believed was theirs. That was different. I needed Claire to see it. Not from a report. Not from a rumor. Directly. I needed her to understand. The empire she built her identity around was built by the husband she abandoned. Back in New York, Claire and Ryan celebrated. The company announced new expansion plans. The media praised Claire again. Articles called her the woman leading the next generation of technology. Ryan stood beside her during interviews. When reporters asked about her husband, Claire gave a simple answer. Ethan chose to leave. That sentence spread quickly. Ethan chose to leave. The world believed it. Even some employees believed it. But nobody knew the truth that I didn't. Leave because I lost, that I left because I was finally ready to stop pretending. And 3 days later, the entire world would learn who really owned Anderson Global. The biggest mistake people make when they underestimate someone is assuming that silence means weakness. They think if someone doesn't fight back, they have already lost. They think if someone walks away, they have nothing left. They think if someone gives up their position, they have no power. Claire thought the same thing. She believed sending me to Africa meant removing a problem. She believed replacing me with Ryan meant creating a better future. She believed the empire would continue growing without me. But she never asked one important question. Why did Anderson Global grow so fast in the first place? The answer was not on magazine covers. It was not in interviews. It was not in Claire's speeches. The answer was hidden in thousands of decisions nobody noticed, and every single one of those decisions had my name attached to them. Before I met Claire, I had already built several successful companies, but I never cared about fame. Money was never the reason I worked. I enjoyed creating things, solving impossible problems, building systems that changed industries. That was who I was, quiet, unknown, behind the scenes. When I met Claire, I wasn't looking for a partner. I wasn't looking for someone to help my career. I met her because of a failed investment meeting. She was the only person in the room who refused to give up. Everyone else looked at numbers. She looked at possibilities. That caught my attention. I remember asking her, after the meeting, "You know they rejected your proposal, right?" She smiled. "Yes. And you're still smiling?" She shrugged. "They rejected the proposal." She looked at me. "They didn't reject my dream." That answer stayed with me. Because most people give up when others say no. Claire didn't. She fought. She believed. And that's why I helped her. Not because I thought she would become famous. Not because I wanted anything in return. Because I believed in her. The first 3 years of Anderson Global were built on trust. Claire handled public relationships. I handled the foundation. She talked to investors. I created the technology. She appeared on stage. I solved problems before they became disasters. We were perfect together, at least I thought we were. Then success arrived, and success brought attention. People started telling Claire, "You are a genius. You created something incredible. You don't need anyone slowing you down." At first, she ignored them. But hearing something every day changes people, especially when everyone around you repeats the same thing. Eventually, Claire started believing that needing help meant weakness, and because I was the only person who still challenged her, I became the person she wanted to remove. The first time Ryan crossed a line was not romantic. It was professional. He convinced Claire to ignore my recommendation on an important partnership that I warned her. That company has financial problems. The numbers look good, but their internal structure is unstable. Claire disagreed. Ryan checked everything. I looked at her. Ryan has worked here for 6 months, and I have worked on this company for 7 years. Her expression changed. Are you saying he is not capable? No, I shook my head. I'm saying experience matters. She crossed her arms. You always think your opinion is the only correct one. That sentence surprised me, because it wasn't true. I had spent 7 years listening to her ideas. But now she saw every disagreement as an attack. I didn't argue. I simply said, fine. 3 months later, that partnership nearly collapsed. The company lost millions. Claire called me late at night. "Ethan, yes? Can you help fix this?" I closed my eyes. Because even after everything, I still wanted to help. I spent 2 days fixing the damage. 2 days without sleep. 2 days solving a problem I warned her about. When everything was stable again, Claire thanked me, but not in the way I expected. She said, "You see, this proves we need better systems." Not, "You were right." Not, "I should have listened." Just another excuse. That was the moment something inside me changed. I realized Claire didn't need me as a partner anymore. She needed me as a backup plan. 3 days before my departure, I made the final decision. Not when she promoted Ryan. Not when she humiliated me. Not even when I discovered the truth about them. The final decision happened when Claire looked at me and said, "Maybe you should find your own purpose. Outside this company. My own purpose. The company I built. The dream I supported. The empire I protected." She thought I was only valuable inside her world. She forgot something. I created that world. In Africa, I sat across from David Morgan. He placed a document in front of me. "You know, once you activate this, there is no going back." I looked at the paper. Founder authority, ownership transfer options, board control, Everything. I know. David studied me. Oh, you still love her? The question was unexpected. I looked down, because the answer was complicated. Yes, David sighed. That makes this harder. No, I looked at him. It makes it necessary. He didn't understand. Oh, I explained, if I hated her, I would destroy everything immediately. David stayed silent. But I don't hate her. I tapped the document. I want her to see the truth. What truth? I looked at him. That the person she abandoned was the person who protected her. Meanwhile, in New York, Claire was living the life she wanted. She and Ryan attended another business event. Pictures appeared online. The CEO, the assistant, the perfect team. Reporters asked, Claire, is your husband supporting your new expansion? Claire smiled. Ethan decided to pursue another opportunity. Another opportunity. That was a beautiful way to hide the truth. She didn't say, I sent him away. She didn't say, I replaced him. She didn't say, I chose someone else, because those words sounded ugly. People always changed the story when the truth made them look bad. Ryan stood beside her. After the interview, he smiled. You handled that perfectly. Claire smiled. I know. You really don't miss him? The question surprised her. For a second, she didn't answer. Then she said, Ethan and I just want different things. Ryan nodded. But he didn't notice something. Claire looked away when she said it, because deep down, a small part of her knew something was wrong. That evening, Anderson Global received an unexpected message that a major investor requested an emergency review. The reason? A contract approval issue. A decision requiring founder authorization. Claire read the email twice. Founder authorization. The words bothered her because Anderson Global had only one founder, at least. That was what everyone believed. She called Ryan. Did you create this request? No, then who did? I don't know. Claire frowned. Find out. Ryan nodded. But when he checked the system, his expression changed. Because the request wasn't from outside. It came from inside. From the company's highest authority, an authority above the CEO, above the executives, above everyone. Ryan stared at the screen. Impossible. Claire looked at him. What? Ryan slowly turned the laptop around. The screen showed one name. A name neither of them expected. Ethan Carter. Claire froze. For several seconds, she didn't speak. Then she whispered. No. Ryan looked confused. Claire? She stared at the screen. Because for the first time in years, she felt something she had forgotten. Uncertainty. 3 days. That was all it took. 3 days after sending me away. 3 days after choosing Ryan. 3 days after believing she had removed me from her life. Claire finally saw my name appear where she least expected, the top. Not as her husband, not as her employee, not as someone she could dismiss, but as something she never knew existed. The person above her, the real owner of her empire. When Claire sent me to Africa, she thought she was removing me from her world. She thought distance would make me disappear. She thought without my name, my position, and my presence, I would finally understand that I was no longer important. But she misunderstood one thing. Africa was never my punishment. It was my freedom. For 7 years, I had stayed behind Claire. I watched her become the face of Anderson Global. I watched reporters call her a genius. I watched investors praise her decisions. And every time someone asked about the person behind the company, I stayed silent. Because I loved her. Because I believed one day she would remember. But love could not survive when only one person protected it. The moment Claire signed my transfer order, something ended. Not my career, not my influence. My patience. The morning after I arrived in Africa, David Morgan called me again. You saw the news? I looked at the tablet in front of me. A headline appeared. Claire Anderson announces new era for Anderson Global with Ryan Mitchell leading international expansion. I stared at the picture. Claire was smiling. Ryan stood beside her. They looked like a perfect team. The world believed that. I didn't blame the world. People only saw what they were shown. I turned off the screen. Yes, David sighed. She really did it. She always wanted this. You mean she wanted Ryan? I didn't answer, because the truth was more complicated. Claire didn't just choose Ryan. She chose the version of herself she wanted to become. A powerful CEO, surrounded by people who admired her. A woman who never had to admit she needed anyone. Even me. David asked, what are you going to do? I looked at the documents on the table. The founder authority files, the ownership structure, the contracts that could change everything. Nothing. David was silent. Nothing? Not yet. Ethan, You realize they are already changing company strategy. I know. Ryan is moving forward with the expansion plan. I know. Then why wait? I leaned back. Because I want them to believe they won. David didn't understand. Why? I looked outside. Because people never appreciate what they lose until they believe they already have everything. Back in New York, Claire was enjoying her victory. At least, that's what everyone thought. The morning meeting started normally. Executives reported progress. Employees congratulated Ryan. Investors praised Claire. Everything looked perfect. Ryan walked into the conference room carrying a presentation. This is our future. The screen behind him displayed a huge expansion map. New markets, new partnerships, billions in projected revenue. Claire smiled. This is exactly what Anderson Global needs. Ryan looked at the executives. We need to stop relying on old methods. Everyone knew what he meant. Old methods, old leadership, old people. A few executives looked uncomfortable because they knew who Ryan was referring to. One senior executive finally spoke. Before approving such a large expansion, shouldn't we review the previous risk analysis? Ryan looked at him. The previous analysis was based on a different era. The executive frowned. Different era? Ryan smiled. Yes, he glanced at Claire. At a time when the company depended too much on one person. The room became quiet. Claire didn't stop him. That told everyone enough. The old Ethan Carter was officially gone. 3 days after my departure, the first problem appeared. The expansion partner in Europe requested additional verification. Ryan became irritated. Why are they delaying? The executive responsible answered. They requested founder-level confirmation. Ryan frowned. Founder level? Yes. Claire is the CEO. The executive hesitated. I know. Then tell them CEO approval is enough. We already did. And they refused. Ryan's expression changed. Why? The executive lowered his voice. They said the company structure requires approval from the original founder. Everyone looked at Claire. She remained calm. Who is the original founder? Nobody answered. Because everyone assumed they knew. Claire, but something about the situation felt wrong. That night, Claire searched through old company documents. For the first time in years, she opened files from the early days, investment agreements, technology patents, development records. She searched for her name. Everywhere. And then she saw something. A document she had never noticed before. Initial technology ownership agreement. Her fingers stopped. She opened it. The first page loaded. Her expression slowly changed because there was a name attached. Not hers. Mine. Ethan Carter. She stared at the screen. She opened another file. Then another. Every original patent. Every foundation agreement. Every major investment. My name appeared. Not as an employee. Not as an assistant. As the creator. The person who owned the foundation. Claire stood up. Impossible. That was the only thought in her mind. Because if this was true, everything she believed about her success was wrong. At the same time, I was sitting in my office in Africa. My assistant placed a report on my desk. Mr. Carter, the European partner has requested your approval. I opened the document. Everything was exactly as expected. The first crack had appeared. I signed one page. Then stopped. Send it. My assistant hesitated. Approve the contract? I shook my head. No. Then I looked at the company logo. Anderson Global. The name Claire loved. The name she believed represented her. Send them confirmation that the founder is aware. The assistant understood. A small smile appeared. Yes, sir. 5 minutes later, Claire received the message. Only one sentence. Founder approval acknowledged. Below it was a digital signature, a signature she knew better than anyone, because she had seen it thousands of times. On personal documents. On marriage papers. On the first business plan. On the apartment they bought together. Her face turned pale because the person controlling her empire was the husband she sent away. That night, Claire called me. I looked at the screen. Her name appeared. For a moment, I didn't answer. Then I accepted. Hello. There was silence. Not the confident silence she always had, a confused silence. Ethan, yes. Her voice was lower. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at the city outside. Tell you what? You know what I mean. No. Another silence. Then she asked, are you the founder? I didn't answer immediately, because for 7 years, I had waited for her to ask, not because I wanted recognition, because I wanted her to care. Finally, I said, yes. The line went completely quiet. I could almost imagine her expression. Shock, confusion, regret. All at once. Why? I frowned. Why what? Why did you hide it? I closed my eyes, because that question hurt. Not because it was difficult, because the answer was simple, because I thought you loved me. Silence. Then I continued. And I thought you cared about building something together. Her voice became softer. Ethan, no. Claire. I interrupted. You want it. An empire. I looked at the screen. You just forgot who built it. I ended the call. 3 days ago, Claire sent me away. She believed she had removed her biggest problem. Now she finally understood. The problem was never that I stood in her way. The problem was, I was the reason there was a road at all. The morning after Claire discovered the truth, Anderson Global changed completely. Not because of a public announcement, not because of a scandal, but because everyone inside the company suddenly realized one terrifying fact. The man they ignored was the person they had always depended on. For years, Ethan Carter had been the invisible foundation of Anderson Global. And now that foundation was no longer silent. I woke up in Africa to dozens of missed calls. Most were from executives, some were from investors, and one was from Claire. I stared at her name for several seconds. A week ago, seeing her call would have made me immediately answer. Now, I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just exhaustion. I answered. Hello. There was a long silence. Then Claire spoke. Ethan. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at the documents in front of me. The same documents that proved what I had hidden for years. I told you. No, you didn't. I showed you. Her voice became confused. When? Every day. Silence. I continued. I showed you when I solved problems you couldn't solve. I showed you when I protected every major deal. I showed you when I stayed behind you while everyone else praised you. My voice remained calm. But you never looked back. Claire didn't respond. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. Then she whispered, were you testing me? I almost laughed. No, then why? Because I loved you. The answer was simple, but it hurt more than any accusation. I didn't need a CEO wife who knew my ownership percentage. I paused. I needed my wife to know me. The silence after that was painful. Finally, Claire said, Ethan, can we talk when you return? I looked outside. The city was waking up. People were starting their days. My new life was beginning. I don't know if I'm coming back. Her voice changed immediately. What? I looked at the phone. You sent me away, Claire. That was different. No, I interrupted. It wasn't. Another silence. Then she said, I made a mistake. A week ago, those words would have meant everything. Now, they came too late. I have a meeting. Ethan. I ended the call. Meanwhile, in New York, Ryan was losing control. He had spent the last week believing he was the future of Anderson Global. He believed Ethan was gone. He believed Claire needed him. But now everything had changed. He walked into Claire's office. She was sitting behind her desk, quiet, something Ryan had never seen before. Usually, Claire was decisive, confident, certain. Today, she looked lost. Claire, she looked up. We need to talk. Ryan closed the door. What happened? Claire looked at him. What do you mean? The company. She didn't answer. Ryan stepped closer. People are nervous. I know. Investors are asking questions. I know. Then why are we doing nothing? Claire looked at him. For the first time, Ryan noticed something. She wasn't looking at him like before. Before, she saw him as the person who understood her. Now, she was comparing him to Ethan, and that scared him. Ryan. Yes? Did you know about Ethan? His expression changed. Know what? That he created the foundation of this company. A pause. Too long. Claire noticed. You knew. Ryan immediately answered. No, but his hesitation had already given him away. Claire stood up. You knew? Ryan looked uncomfortable. I knew he was involved. Involved? Her voice became colder. You told me he was just an ordinary employee. Ryan tried to explain. Claire, listen. No, she shook her head. You knew. Ryan became defensive. Does it matter? The question surprised her. Does it matter? Yes. Ryan sighed. Claire, the company is still yours. She stared at him. Is it? Ryan froze. Because that was the first time Claire questioned it the same time. I received an urgent report. The board members wanted a meeting. Not because they needed my permission, because they needed my decision. I entered the video conference. Several executives appeared on screen. People who had worked with me for years. The first person to speak was Michael, the former financial director. Ethan, we apologize. I said nothing. He continued that we should have told Claire the truth earlier. I looked at him. You made your choice. He lowered his head. We thought protecting her image was the right decision. I understood. Everyone had protected Claire, including me. The difference was, I was the only one who paid the price. Another executive spoke. Ryan has already made several dangerous decisions that I know. The expansion plan could create significant losses that I know. They looked at me. Then what should we do? I looked at the company reports. The same company I built. The same company Claire almost risked. Continue. Everyone was surprised. Continue? Yes. But why? I answered calmly. Because I don't want revenge that I looked at the screen that I want consequences. That afternoon, Ryan made the biggest mistake of his life that he held a press conference. Without Claire's approval, without the board's approval that he announced, Anderson Global is entering a new era. Reporters asked, "What about Ethan Carter?" Ryan smiled. Ethan chose to leave because he was not prepared for the company's future. The statement spread quickly and for several hours. Ryan believed he had won until the stock market opened. Within 30 minutes, 3 major investors froze cooperation. Within an hour, 2 international partners requested emergency meetings. Within 3 hours, the expansion project stopped. The reason? One simple message. From the founder, strategic approval suspended. Claire saw the news. Her hands trembled because now she understood. Ethan wasn't fighting them, that he wasn't attacking them. He was simply removing the support he had always provided. And without that support, the empire began shaking. Ryan entered her office. "Claire, we need to respond." She looked at him. "How?" Ryan didn't answer because he didn't know. For the first time, Claire saw the difference. Ethan prevented disasters. Ryan only reacted to them. That night, Claire sat alone in the office. She opened an old photo, a picture from 7 years ago, the day Anderson Global received its first investment. I in the picture. Claire was smiling, and standing beside her was Ethan. Not behind. Beside. She remembered what she said that day, that we built this together. Her eyes became red, because now she realized something painful. She hadn't lost a partner. She had pushed away the only person who never wanted anything from her, except her trust. 3 days after sending me away, Claire finally understood. The assistant she chose was never the reason she succeeded. The husband she abandoned was. And now she had to face the biggest question of her life. Could she survive without Ethan Carter? Or had she already destroyed the only person who could save her empire? The first time Claire apologized to me, I almost didn't recognize her voice. Because for years, Claire Anderson never apologized. Not to investors, not to employees, not to me. She was the woman who believed admitting mistakes was a weakness. The woman who stood on stages and told thousands of people that confidence was the key to success. But now, after 3 days without me protecting her empire, she finally understood something. Confidence without reality was just arrogance. That I was reviewing the latest company reports when my phone rang. Claire. Again. This time, I answered, "Hello." For several seconds, she said nothing. Then, "Ethan." "Yes? I need to see you." I looked at the documents on my desk. The company situation was worse than Claire knew. Several investors were waiting for my decision. The board wanted me to return. The market was watching. But none of that mattered right now, because Claire was finally facing the truth. "What do you want to talk about?" "Everything." I was silent. She continued. "About the company." A pause. "And about us." I leaned back. "Claire." "Yes? Which one matters more to you?" The question shocked her. "What do you mean?" "You called me because the company is unstable." That's not true, isn't it?" Silence. I continued. "If Anderson Global was still growing, would you have called me?" She didn't answer, because she knew. The answer was no. And that was more painful than any argument. 2 days later, Claire came to Africa. She arrived alone. No Ryan, no assistants, no executives. Just Claire, the woman who once walked into every room surrounded by people. Now she was standing in front of me with nothing except regret. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "You look different." I smiled slightly. "Doi?" "Yes." "How?" She looked at me. I don't know. I knew the answer. I wasn't different. I was just no longer trying to become someone she wanted. Claire sat down. "Ethan, I made a mistake." I looked at her. She continued. "I thought I could handle everything." "You did." She looked surprised. "What?" "You did handle everything." Her expression changed. "Then why?" "Because handling everything doesn't mean understanding everything." She lowered her eyes. For the first time, she looked ashamed. "I hurt you." "Yes." "I didn't realize." "I know." That answer made her look up. "You know?" I nodded. "That was the problem." She froze. "What?" "You didn't realize." I looked at her. "You didn't wake up one day and decide to hurt me." I paused. You just stopped seeing me. The room became silent, because that was the truth. The betrayal wasn't one moment that IT was thousands of small moments. Every time she ignored me, every time she chose someone else, every time she acted like my existence was a burden. Claire looked at me. Did you ever hate me? The question surprised me that I thought about. It that no, her eyes became emotional. Why? Because hate means you still care. She looked down. And you don't. I didn't answer immediately, because that was the hardest question that I cared. Past tense. Claire noticed. Her expression changed. Ethan, I interrupted that I loved my wife. A pause. But I stopped fighting for someone who already gave up on me. Meanwhile, back in New York, Ryan was preparing his own plan that he knew Claire had gone to see me, and he was afraid. Not because he cared about Claire, because he knew what would happen if I returned. Everything he gained would disappear. His position, his influence, his reputation. All of IT.So he contacted several executives secretly. We need to protect the company. Point one executive asked. From who? Ryan answered. From Ethan Carter. The room became quiet, because everyone understood something. Ethan was not attacking the company. Ryan was afraid of him. Ryan tried to convince the board. Ethan is emotionally unstable. Nobody responded that he is angry because Claire chose me. Still. Silence. Finally, Michael, the financial director, looked at him. Oh, you really believe that? Ryan frowned. What? You think Ethan wants your position? Ryan didn't answer. Michael shook his head. You don't understand him. Ryan laughed. Really? Yes. Michael looked directly at him. Ethan could have taken everything from Claire years ago. Ryan froze. What? He owned the foundation. Silence that he could have revealed his identity any time. Michael continued. But he didn't. Why? Michael answered. Because he loved her. When Claire returned to New York, everything had changed. She walked into headquarters, the same building where she once proudly announced Ethan's departure, but now every employee looked at her differently. Not with admiration, with uncertainty. She entered her office. Ryan was waiting. That we need to talk. Claire looked at him. No. Ryan froze. No. She placed a document on the table. That I'm reviewing every decision you made. His face changed. Claire, seriously? Yes. You don't trust me anymore? She looked at him. That question was almost funny, because it was exactly what Ethan had felt. For years. No, she answered honestly. I don't. Ryan stared at her. Then his expression became colder. After everything I did for you. Claire looked at him. What did you do? The question hit him. Ryan couldn't answer, because every achievement he had was connected to Claire's power, not his own. That evening, Claire received another message from me. Only one sentence. The board meeting is tomorrow. She stared at the screen, then replied, Are you coming? I looked at the message. For a moment, I considered it. Then I typed, Yes. 3 seconds later, another message arrived. Why? I answered, Because everyone deserves to know the truth. The next morning, the most important meeting in Anderson Global's history began. Executives entered, investors entered, board members entered. Claire sat at the front, for the first time in years. She wasn't sure what would happen next. Then the doors opened. I walked in. The room became silent. Everyone stood, not because I demanded respect, because they finally understood who I was. Claire looked at me. Her eyes were filled with regret. Ryan looked terrified, and I knew this moment would change everything. Because today, the world would finally learn the truth. The CEO everyone admired was never the person who owned the empire. The room was silent when I walked in. Not the uncomfortable silence from years ago. Not the silence of people ignoring me. This was different. This was the silence of people finally realizing they had misunderstood someone. For years, I sat in the corner while Claire received applause. Today, I stood at the front while everyone waited for my decision. The difference was simple. I had never needed the spotlight, but the spotlight eventually found me. Claire looked at me. I could see 1,000 emotions in her eyes. Shock, regret, confusion, maybe even sadness. But I didn't let those emotions change my purpose. That I wasn't there to punish her. I was there to correct the story. The chairman of the board stood up. Mr. Carter. Everyone turned toward him. He continued, Thank you for attending. I nodded. Let's begin. Ryan immediately stood. This meeting is unnecessary. Everyone looked at him. He tried to remain confident. Ethan is no longer involved in daily management. I looked at him. Interesting. Even now, he still didn't understand that I wasn't there because I wanted a position. I was there because I owned the foundation. The chairman looked at Ryan. Sit down. Ryan froze. What? Sit down. For the first time, Ryan realized something. Nobody was listening to him anymore. The first document appeared on the screen. Original ownership agreement. The room became quiet. The chairman spoke. 7 years ago, Anderson Global was created under a private ownership structure. Everyone watched. The public records listed Claire Anderson as the CEO and public representative. A second document appeared. But the founder and majority owner was Ethan Carter. The room exploded with whispers. Executives looked at each other. Investors checked the documents. Ryan's face changed completely. No, he shook his head. This can't be true. I looked at him. Why not? Ryan stared at me. Because Claire built this company. I nodded. She did. That answer surprised everyone. I continued. Claire built the public image. I looked around the room. But I built the foundation. Nobody spoke. Because the truth was finally clear. Claire wasn't a fake CEO. She was talented. She was hardworking. She was capable. But she wasn't the person who created everything alone. The empire was. Never hers alone. Ryan became emotional. You planned this. I looked at him. Planned what? This, he pointed around. You waited until Claire needed you. Then you came back. I almost laughed. No, I shook my head. I left because she told me she didn't need me. Ryan's expression changed. And now you're enjoying watching her fail. No. My answer was immediate. I don't enjoy this. I looked at Claire. Because I never wanted this. Claire lowered her eyes. The room became quiet again. Because everyone understood. I wasn't angry because I lost power. I was hurt because I lost trust. The board reviewed Ryan's decisions. The results were worse than expected. Several expansion agreements had serious problems. Financial risks had been ignored. Important warnings had been dismissed. The reason? Ryan wanted fast results. He wanted recognition. He wanted to prove he could replace me. But a company wasn't built on ambition alone. IT required responsibility. Point one executive spoke. Ryan approved several decisions without complete analysis. Another added. He rejected internal warnings. The chairman looked at Ryan. Why? Ryan looked around. Nobody supported him anymore. Finally, he said, because I believed in Claire. Everyone became silent. Even Claire looked surprised. Ryan continued. She wanted someone who believed in her. I looked at him. And for the first time, I understood something. Ryan wasn't just manipulating Claire. He believed his own lies. He thought admiration was enough. He thought saying the right words made him valuable. But business didn't work that way. Reality always arrived eventually. After the meeting ended, Claire stayed behind. Everyone else left. Only the two of us remained. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, I was wrong. I looked at her. Yes, she looked surprised. Maybe she expected comfort. Maybe she expected me to say, it's okay. But it wasn't. Not anymore. She continued. I thought you were angry because I replaced you. I said nothing. She lowered her voice. But now I understand. What? You weren't angry. Because Ryan took your position. She looked at me. You were hurt because I treated you like you never mattered. I didn't answer. Because she was right. That was the first time Claire truly understood. She walked closer. Can we fix this? I looked at her. A year ago. That question would have broken every wall I had. Now, it only made me tired. Claire. Yes? You can't repair 7 years with one apology. Tears appeared in her eyes. I know. No, I shook my head. You don't. She looked at me. Because if you understood, you would know why this hurts. Silence. I continued. I didn't need you to know I owned the company. I didn't need you to praise me. I didn't need anyone else to know what I did. I paused. I needed my wife to know. That night, Claire made a decision. She removed Ryan from the core management team. Not because I asked, because she finally saw the truth. Ryan never loved the person she was. He loved the person she represented. The CEO, the power, the empire. When that power disappeared, so did his confidence. Ryan left Anderson Global quietly, but before leaving, he sent me one message. You won. I looked at it. Then replied. No, a minute later. Then what happened? I answered. The truth. 1.3 days after Claire sent me away, everything had changed. The assistant who thought he became the king lost everything. The CEO who thought she owned the empire learned the truth. And I finally stopped being the man standing behind her. I became the man standing on my own. But there was still one question left. What would happen? To Claire, because destroying an empire was easy. The harder thing was deciding whether the person who broke your heart deserved another chance. After Ryan left Anderson Global, Everyone expected me to take revenge. They expected a dramatic takeover. They expected me to remove Claire completely. After all, that was what most people would do. A CEO betrayed by his wife, a founder ignored by everyone, a man who watched another person take credit for his life's work. Most people would destroy everything. But I wasn't most people, because the company was never the thing that hurt me. Claire was. The morning after Ryan left, the board held another meeting. This time, everyone knew who I was. The atmosphere was completely different. Executives who once ignored my opinions now waited for my decisions. Investors who once contacted Claire first now contacted me directly. The same people who thought I was just the CEO's husband now understood the reality. I was the person they should have known from the beginning. The founder, the owner, the person who had protected Anderson Global for years. The chairman looked at me. Mr. Carter, the board would like to know your plan. I looked at the reports. The company was damaged, but not destroyed, because I had stopped the problems before they became disasters. First, we stabilized the international expansion. Everyone listened. Second, we rebuild investor confidence. The chairman nodded. And third, I looked at Claire. She was sitting across from me, quiet, different. For the first time, she wasn't trying to control the room. She was listening. Third, we changed the company's culture. Nobody expected that answer. One executive asked. What do you mean? I answered. For years, this company rewarded appearances. I looked around. From now on, we reward results. The room became silent because everyone understood. The old Anderson Global was built around a person's image. The new Anderson Global would be built around reality. 3 months later, everything changed. The company recovered faster than anyone expected. The investors who once questioned Anderson Global returned. The international partners who froze cooperation reopened negotiations. The market value increased. News outlets started reporting about me, not Claire me. The hidden founder behind Anderson Global finally revealed. The man who built a $20 billion empire from behind the scenes. Ethan Carter. The genius who refused fame. I ignored most of the articles because I had spent years avoiding attention. But Claire noticed. Every morning, she saw my name appearing everywhere. And every time, her expression became more complicated because she finally understood what she had lost. One evening, Claire came to my office. Not the old office. My new office. The one I had never asked for. She stood outside the door for several seconds before entering. I looked up. Something happened? She shook her head. No, she smiled slightly. I just wanted to talk. I closed the document. Okay. She sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Do you know what the strangest thing is? What? I spent years trying to prove I didn't need anyone. I listened. And the person I pushed away was the only person who never wanted anything from me. I didn't answer because I knew she was talking about me. Claire looked at the office. You know what I remember? What? The first year. She smiled sadly. We had almost nothing. I nodded. You said we would succeed. I remember. You were so confident. I smiled slightly. I was pretending. That surprised her. You were? Yes. She laughed softly. You always looked like you knew everything. I knew one thing. What? That you wouldn't give up. Her smile disappeared. Because that was the difference. I believed in her. Before the money. Before the fame. Before the empire. Claire looked down. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, she looked up. Why? Because I don't hate people I once loved. Her eyes became emotional. But you don't love me anymore. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. I stayed silent. And silence was sometimes more painful than an answer. Meanwhile, the business world began changing. Several companies wanted to cooperate with my new projects. Investors offered partnerships. People who had ignored me for years suddenly wanted meetings. One billionaire investor said, Ethan, you could have been famous years ago. I smiled. I didn't need to be. He asked. Then why reveal yourself now? I looked out the window because hiding myself protected someone else. And now I need to protect myself. Claire slowly changed. Not overnight. Not magically. People don't become different because they apologize once. They change because they face the consequences of their choices. She started working differently. She listened more. She asked questions. She stopped surrounding herself with people who only praised her. One day, during a meeting, an executive suggested a risky decision. Before, Claire would have immediately approved. This time, she asked, What could go wrong? Everyone froze, because that was my question, the question I had asked for years. The question she used to ignore. Now she finally understood why it mattered. But despite the changes, things between us were not the same. Claire wanted another chance. I knew that. Everyone knew that. She tried small things. Coffee, conversations, apologies. But some wounds did not disappear because someone regretted creating them. One night, she asked, "Is there anything I can do?" I looked at her. To what? To make you believe me again. I was silent. Then I answered, "You can't ask someone to trust you." She looked hurt. "You can only become someone trustworthy." That night, she didn't argue. She just nodded. 6 months after everything happened, Anderson Global announced my biggest project, a new global technology platform, a project worth more than anything Claire had ever launched. The entire industry watched. The same people who once called Claire the genius now called me the mastermind. But I wasn't interested in proving I was better. I already knew. The only person who needed to understand was Claire. And slowly, she was. The day of the launch event, Claire stood beside me. Not in front. Not taking control. Beside me. Just like 7 years ago, before everything changed. A reporter asked, "Mr. Carter, is Claire Anderson still part of your future?" The entire room became quiet. Everyone wanted the answer. Claire looked at me. For the first time, she wasn't trying to influence my response. She was simply waiting. I looked at her. The woman who hurt me. The woman who once believed I was worthless. The woman who was finally learning what she had lost. Then I answered, "Some people deserve a second chance." Claire's eyes moved slightly. "But a second chance must be earned." The reporter nodded, and Claire understood that I wasn't rejecting her, but I wasn't returning to the past either. That night, after everyone left, Claire found me outside. "Thank you." I looked at her. "For what?" "For not destroying me." I shook my head. "I never wanted to destroy you." "Then what did you want?" "I looked at the city. I wanted you to see me." Her eyes became red. "I see you now." I nodded. "I know." A pause. Then she whispered, "I just wish I had seen you earlier." I looked at her. "So did I." But life didn't give people the chance to return to the moment before they made a mistake. It only gave them the chance to decide what came next. The world believed Claire lost everything. Her lover, her control, her perfect image. But the truth was different. She lost something much more valuable. She lost the man who stood beside her when nobody believed in her. And now, she had to prove whether she deserved to stand beside him again. 6 months after I revealed my identity, Anderson Global was stronger than ever. The company had recovered. The investors returned. The expansion plans were rebuilt. The market value reached a new peak. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But I knew something others didn't. That a company was never truly safe just because it was successful. The bigger you became, the more people wanted to take you down. And soon, someone tried. The first warning came from David Morgan. He called me early in the morning. "Ethan, we have a problem." I looked at the reports on my desk. "What happened?" "Someone is buying shares aggressively." I frowned. "Who?" "We don't know yet." That answer concerned me. Because in business, the most dangerous opponents were not always the loudest. Sometimes the quiet ones were preparing something much bigger. "How much?" David paused. "Enough to challenge control." I stood up. "Send me everything." Within an hour, I had the information. A competing investment group had been purchasing shares through several smaller companies. They were hiding their identity, but their goal was obvious. They wanted control of Anderson Global, the company I built, the company Claire almost lost, the company we had both fought for in different ways. I called an emergency meeting. The board members arrived quickly. Everyone was nervous. One executive asked, "Should we contact investors?" No, they looked surprised. "Why?" "Because panic is exactly what they want." I looked at the documents. "They want us to make emotional decisions." The chairman nodded to S. "Oh, what's your plan?" I looked at the ownership structure. The same structure I had created years ago. "Let them continue." Everyone was shocked. "Continue?" "Yes." I smiled slightly. Sometimes people reveal themselves when they think they are winning. Claire was in the meeting too. She had changed. 6 months ago, she would have interrupted. She would have insisted on controlling everything. Now, she waited. Finally, she asked, "Do you know who is behind this?" I looked at her. "Not yet." She nodded. "What can I do?" That question surprised everyone, because Claire Anderson, the former CEO who believed she could solve everything alone, was asking how she could help. I answered honestly, "Use your connections." She nodded. Immediately, no argument, no pride. Just action. That was when I realized something. Claire really had changed. Not because she apologized, not because she regretted losing me, but because she finally stopped trying to prove she was the smartest person in the room. She started becoming a real leader. 3 days later, Claire discovered something important. The competitor wasn't targeting Anderson Global randomly. They were targeting us because of our new technology platform. The same platform I had developed years ago, the same technology that built the company's foundation. Someone wanted it. Not just the company, the technology itself. Claire entered my office with a file that we found them. I looked up. Who? She placed the documents. Down. A former partner. I opened the file, then froze, because I recognized the name. Someone from the early days, someone who knew about Anderson Global before it became famous, someone who knew my identity. How? Claire looked at me. He worked with you 7 years ago. I nodded. Yes, and he believes you stole the opportunity from him. I laughed quietly. Interesting. Claire frowned. What? People always rewrite history when they fail. That evening, I met the person behind the attack. Victor Hayes. A former technology investor. Years ago, he rejected my first proposal. He believed the company would fail. Now he wanted what he once ignored. He sat across from me. You finally stopped hiding. I looked at him. Yes, he smiled. You know what's funny? What? I always knew you were the real talent. I raised an eyebrow. Then why did you reject me? His smile disappeared. Because I thought I could create something better. And he looked away. I was wrong. I nodded. That's why you're trying to take mine. His expression hardened. Business is competition. No, I shook my head. Business is competition. I leaned forward. But stealing because you failed isn't competition. Victor tried to make a deal. Give me part of the technology, and I'll stop. I laughed. You came here to threaten me? No, he smiled. I came here because I know your weakness. I looked at him. My weakness? Yes, he paused. Claire. The room became quiet. I understood immediately. He believed Claire was still my weakness. He believed the woman who betrayed me could be used against me. I stood up. You made the same mistake everyone else made. Victor frowned. What? You underestimated her. The next morning, Claire shocked everyone. She held a press conference. Not as the CEO. Not as the public face. As someone taking responsibility. She admitted that the company had faced internal problems before. She explained that Anderson Global had changed its leadership structure. And she made one sentence clear. This company belongs to the people who built it, protected it, and continue fighting for it. The reporters asked, Are you referring to Ethan Carter? Claire looked directly at the cameras. Yes, the world watched. Because Claire Anderson had never publicly admitted another person's importance before. She continued, Ethan created the foundation of this company. A reporter asked, Do you regret what happened? Claire was silent, then answered, Yes. The room became quiet. I regret believing success meant I didn't need the person who believed in me before success existed. That statement changed everything. Investors who doubted Claire reconsidered. Employees who lost respect for her saw something different. Not a perfect CEO. A human one. Victor's plan collapsed within days. The hidden share purchases were exposed. Investors withdrew. The takeover attempt failed. But the most important victory wasn't financial. It was personal. Because for the first time, Claire didn't choose power. She chose honesty. That night, she came to see me. You knew I could do it. I smiled. I hoped you could. She looked at me. That's different. Yes. Why? Because hope means I wasn't sure. She laughed softly, the first real laugh I had heard from her in a long time. Then she became serious. Ethan. Yes? I know I can't erase what I did. I nodded. I know. But I want to spend the rest of my life proving I changed. I looked at her. The old Claire would have demanded forgiveness. The new Claire was asking for a chance. That difference mattered. The empire survived. The threat disappeared. But our story wasn't over. Because defeating an enemy was easy. The hardest battle was always the one between two people who once loved each other. And Claire still had one final thing to prove. Not to the company. Not to investors. Not to the world that Tio met a year ago. Claire Anderson stood on a stage surrounded by applause. She wore the most expensive dress. She held the biggest award. She controlled the most powerful company. Everyone looked at her and saw a winner. I was sitting in the corner. Nobody noticed me. Nobody asked my opinion. Nobody cared that the person being ignored was the reason that empire existed at that time. Claire believed she had everything, but she didn't understand something that a person can own billions of dollars and still lose the most important thing in their life. After Victor Hayes' failed takeover attempt, Anderson Global entered a new stage. The company became stronger, but more importantly, the people inside it changed. The old culture was gone to no more pretending to no more rewarding people because they knew how to impress the CEO. Everyone had to prove their value, including Claire. That was something she accepted. Before, Claire would have considered it an insult. Now, she saw it as a responsibility. During one board meeting, an executive presented a proposal. Claire listened carefully, then asked, "What are the risks?" The executive hesitated. "Risks?" "Yes." She looked at him. "Every opportunity has risks." The room became quiet because everyone remembered. That was my question, the question I had asked for years, the question Claire once considered negativity. Now she understood that a leader wasn't someone who only looked at success, that a leader was someone who prepared for failure. One evening, Claire came to my office. She brought no documents, no business requests, no company problems. Just herself. I looked up. "Something happened?" She shook her head. "No." I closed my laptop. Then, she sat down. "I wanted to talk." I nodded. "Okay." She looked around. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "I spent years trying to become someone everyone respected." She smiled sadly. "But I forgot to become someone worth respecting." I didn't answer, because that sentence showed how much she had changed. The old Claire would never have said that. She would have blamed circumstances, pressure, competition, other people. This Claire was finally looking at herself. "I know you don't trust me completely." I looked at her. "That's true." She nodded. "I understand." That surprised me. "You do?" "Yes." She looked down. "Because I finally understand what it feels like." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "When everyone around you supports you because of what you have." She paused. "But nobody knows who you really are." I stayed silent, because that was exactly how I had felt. For years, everyone knew Claire Anderson. Almost nobody knew Ethan Carter, except Claire. And she was the person who forgot me first. "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately." She looked at me. "I don't even know if I deserve it." That was the first honest thing she had said. Not, "I made a mistake." Not, "I was confused." Not, "I was under pressure." Just, "I hurt you." I appreciated that, because accountability was the beginning of change. The next few months passed quietly. Claire didn't chase me anymore. She didn't pressure me. She didn't ask for another chance every day. Instead, she changed through actions. She helped rebuild damaged relationships with employees. She admitted previous mistakes publicly. She refused to take credit for things she didn't personally create. One day, an employee asked her during an interview, "Do you still consider yourself the person who built Anderson Global?" Claire smiled. No. The reporter looked surprised. "Why?" She answered, "Because no great company is built by one person." Then she paused. "But I was lucky enough to work beside someone who believed in it before anyone else did." The reporter asked, "Ethan Carter?" Claire nodded. "Yes, that interview went viral. Not because of the company, because people saw something rare. A powerful person admitting they were wrong. Many people criticized her. Some said she didn't deserve forgiveness. Some said she only changed because she lost control. Maybe some of them were right. But change wasn't proven by words. It was proven by time. And Claire was finally willing to spend that time. 6 months later, I received an invitation. Not from Anderson Global. From Claire. A personal invitation. The location was the place where we first discussed her dream, the small restaurant near our old apartment. I almost refused. Almost. But something made me go. When I arrived, Claire was already there. No expensive clothes, no immediate NOCO image. Just Claire, the woman I met 7 years ago. She smiled. "Thank you for coming." I sat down. "What is this about?" She took a deep breath. I wanted to return something. She placed a small box on the table. I opened it. Inside was my old watch. The one she gave me on our first anniversary. I looked at her. "You kept it?" "Yes." "Why?" She smiled sadly. "Because even when I lost you, I couldn't forget the person who gave me everything." I was silent. She continued, "I know this doesn't fix anything. No, I know apologies don't change the past. No, she nodded. "But I wanted you to know something." "What?" "I don't want your company." I looked at her. She continued, "I don't want your money. I don't want your position." Her eyes became emotional. "I just want Ethan." For the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I loved. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the public figure, just Claire. But love was complicated, because the heart remembers good moments, and the mind remembers the pain. I looked at her. "Claire." "Yes?" "Do you know what hurt me the most?" She shook her head. No. It wasn't Ryan. Her expression changed. That IT wasn't the company that I paused. That IT was that you looked at me and believed I had nothing to offer. Tears appeared in her eyes. That I know. No, I shook my head. You know now. She looked at me. But back then, you didn't. Silence. And that version of you destroyed us. She lowered her head. That I know. That night, I didn't give her an answer. I didn't forgive her completely. That I didn't reject her either. Because some stories don't end with revenge. Some stories end with a choice. And Claire's final chance was not about winning me back. That IT was about becoming someone who deserved to be trusted again. The next morning, the entire business world received unexpected news. Anderson Global would announce a major leadership decision. Everyone expected me to take full control. Everyone expected Claire to disappear, but when the announcement came, the world was shocked because the decision was not about power. It was about partnership. The final chapter would reveal whether the woman who lost everything could truly earn back the one thing she wanted most. Not the empire, not the title, not the wealth. Me. The announcement day arrived. The entire business world was watching Anderson Global. For months, everyone had been waiting for the final decision. Would Ethan Carter remove Claire Anderson completely? Would the founder take back everything? Would the woman who betrayed him finally lose the empire she once believed belonged to her? That was the story everyone expected, but they misunderstood me. Just like they had misunderstood me from the beginning. The press conference began at 10 a.m. Hundreds of reporters filled the room. Cameras were everywhere. Investors watched online. Employees waited for the future of the company to be announced. Claire stood beside me. But this time, something was different. A year ago, she would have stood in the center. She would have controlled the conversation. Today, she stood quietly. She wasn't waiting to take credit. She was waiting to accept whatever decision came. That was the first sign that she had changed. The chairman stepped forward. Today, Anderson Global will announce a new leadership structure. The room became silent. Everyone looked at me. The chairman continued. Ethan Carter, founder and majority owner of Anderson Global, will assume final strategic control. Applause filled the room. Then the chairman continued. But Claire Anderson will remain as the company's CEO. The applause stopped. Everyone was surprised. Even Claire looked at me. The reporters immediately started asking questions. Mr. Carter, why keep Claire after everything that happened? Wasn't she responsible for the previous problems? Why give her another chance? I walked toward the microphone. The room became quiet. I know what everyone is thinking. I looked at the cameras. You think this is about forgiveness? A pause. It is not. Everyone listened. This is about ability. I looked at Claire. Claire Anderson made serious mistakes. The room became tense. But mistakes do not erase talent. I continued. A great leader is not someone who never fails. I looked at the audience. A great leader is someone who learns when they do. Nobody spoke because they understood that I wasn't defending the old Claire. I was recognizing the new one. A reporter raised a question. Mr. Carter, do you still trust her? This was the question everyone wanted answered. I looked at Claire. She didn't move. She didn't try to influence my response. She simply waited. I finally answered. Trust is not something you receive because you ask for it. The room was silent. Trust is something you rebuild through actions. I paused. And Claire has spent the last year doing exactly that. Claire lowered her eyes because she knew. That was the biggest compliment I could give her. Not that I forgave her, that I noticed her effort. After the press conference, Claire found me. We stood in the empty hallway. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. Thank you. I looked at her. For what? For giving me a chance. I shook my head. I didn't give you anything. She looked confused. What do you mean? You earned it. That answer meant more to her than any apology. Because for the first time, she wasn't receiving something because she was my wife. She received it because she proved herself. Months passed. The new Anderson Global became stronger than ever. The company no longer depended on one person. Not me. Not Claire. The system we created was stronger. Claire became the CEO people originally believed she was. Not because she was perfect, because she finally understood leadership. She listened. She admitted mistakes. She respected the people beside her, especially the people who helped her. One evening, I returned to the old apartment, the place where everything began. Claire was there. She had kept it. I looked around. You never sold this place. She smiled. Know why? She looked at the room. Because this was the only place where I wasn't a CEO. I looked at her. What were you? She smiled. Your wife. The answer surprised me. Because years ago, that was exactly what I wanted. Not a billionaire. Not a powerful executive. Just my wife. Claire walked toward me. Can I ask you something? Sure that if you knew everything would happen like this, she hesitated. Would you still have helped me build Anderson Global? I didn't answer immediately, because it was a difficult question. Then I smiled. Yes. Her eyes became emotional. Why? Because the person I helped was real. That I looked at her. The person who hurt me was someone success created. She lowered her head. And what about now? I smiled slightly. Now I see both. She took a deep breath. I can't change the past. No, I can't erase what I did. No, but I can promise something. That I looked at her. What? I will never make you feel invisible again. For some reason, that sentence affected me more than all her apologies, because that was exactly what I needed. Not praise, not admiration. To be seen. A year later, Anderson Global celebrated its anniversary. The same event where everything had started. The same place where Claire once sent me away. But this time, everything was different. Claire stood on stage. She looked at the crowd. Then she looked at me. Many people know Anderson Global as my company. She smiled. But that story was never completely true. The audience became quiet. She continued, this company exists because someone believed in it before anyone else did. She looked at me. Someone who never needed recognition. The crowd followed her gaze. I stood there. Not hidden, not ignored, not forgotten. Claire said, Ethan Carter built the foundation. The applause began. But this time, I didn't feel invisible because I finally understood something. Recognition was never what I wanted. The person who mattered had finally seen me. Later that night, Claire and I walked outside. The city lights surrounded us. The same city where we started. The same city where everything almost ended. She asked, do you think we can really start over? I looked at her. Start over? Yes. I smiled. No, she looked disappointed. Why? Because we aren't the same people anymore. She became quiet. I continued. We don't need to start over. I looked at her. We need to build something new. The world always believed the biggest victory was taking back power. They were wrong. Power was easy. Money was easy. Building an empire was difficult. But rebuilding trust after losing it, that was the hardest thing anyone could do. Claire once thought she owned everything. The company, the success, the future. But she learned the truth too late. An empire is not built by one person. And the greatest thing she almost lost was never the company. It was the person who stood beside her before the world knew her name.